The fork slipped from his fingers and clattered against the plate. A sharp sound that sliced through the low murmur of the restaurant like a warning no one wanted to hear. Every head seemed to turn at once, but it wasn't the noise that froze the moment. It was the way three men in black coats stepped closer, their eyes fixed not on the food, not on the room, but on the young woman sitting across from him, her breath caught somewhere between fear and disbelief. In that instant you might wonder what you would do. Would you look away and pretend nothing was happening? Would you quietly gather your things and leave? Or would you stay, knowing that stepping in might cost you more than just your evening? Marcus didn't think about it. He never had the luxury of overthinking anymore. Life had taught him that hesitation often meant regret, and regret was a weight he already carried far too heavily. He had come to that small diner on the edge of a quiet street in Ohio because it was one of the few places his daughter Sophie loved. She wasn't with him that night. She was at home with a fever, but he had stopped by anyway after a long shift, hoping to bring her favorite meal back. Being a single father had reshaped him in ways he never imagined. Every dollar counted, every minute mattered, and every choice felt like it echoed louder than it should. Across from him sat a stranger, Olivia, someone he hadn't even known 10 minutes earlier. The place was crowded, and the waitress had mistakenly seated them at the same table. They had exchanged an awkward smile, then a few polite words. She seemed nervous even then, glancing over her shoulder more than once, as if something or someone was following her. And now, those men had found her. Their presence felt wrong in a place like that. Too controlled. Too deliberate. One of them leaned forward slightly, his voice low but firm, his expression carrying the kind of authority that didn't ask for permission. Olivia's hands trembled, her fingers tightening around the edge of the table as though it were the only thing keeping her grounded. Marcus felt something shift inside him, something old and familiar. It was the same instinct that had driven him years ago, before life had knocked him down, before he had lost everything and rebuilt himself piece by fragile piece. He looked at Olivia, really looked at her this time, and saw not just fear but desperation. The kind that comes when you realize you might not have anyone left to help you. He leaned back slightly, placing himself between her and the men without making it obvious, his voice calm but steady as he spoke. He didn't raise his tone, didn't make a scene, but there was something in the way he carried himself that changed the air around them. It wasn't defiance exactly, but it wasn't submission either. It was something quieter, something stronger. The men paused. Not because they were unsure, but because they recognized something in Marcus that didn't match the rest of the room. He wasn't just another customer. There was a stillness in him, a controlled readiness that suggested he understood more than he was letting on. Olivia looked at him then, confusion mixing with a flicker of hope, as if she couldn't quite believe that a stranger would step into something so dangerous for her. Maybe she was asking herself the same question you might be asking now. Why would anyone risk so much for someone they didn't even know? The tension stretched thin, fragile as glass. One of the men reached into his coat, not in a threatening way, but in a way that hinted at authority. Identification flashed briefly, too quick for most to catch, but Marcus saw it. He always noticed the details others missed. For a moment, doubt flickered in his mind. Maybe this wasn't what it seemed. Maybe he was stepping into something official, something beyond his place. But then he saw Olivia's eyes again, wide and pleading, and the doubt faded. Titles didn't always mean truth. Authority didn't always mean justice. Marcus spoke again, softer this time, but with a weight that made the words land heavier than any shout. He didn't challenge them outright. He simply refused to move. Seconds felt like minutes. The room had gone eerily quiet, as if everyone sensed that something important was unfolding, but no one dared to interfere. And then, something unexpected happened. The man in front hesitated. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but Marcus caught it. A flicker of recognition crossed the man's face, followed by something else, uncertainty. He studied Marcus more closely now, as if trying to place him, as if searching his memory for something just out of reach. That was when Marcus reached into his jacket. The movement was slow, deliberate, and every eye in the room locked onto him. He pulled out a worn leather wallet, the edges frayed from years of use. For a second it looked like nothing more than an ordinary object, the kind any tired father might carry. But when he opened it, everything changed. The badge inside wasn't new. It didn't shine like the polished ones you see in movies. It was older, marked by time and experience, but it carried a quiet authority that didn't need to be explained. Marcus hadn't been just a father, he had once been someone else entirely. The men straightened almost immediately, the tension shifting from confrontation to something closer to respect, or perhaps caution. They exchanged brief glances, silent communication passing between them, and then stepped back. Olivia exhaled sharply, as if she had been holding her breath for far too long. The fear in her eyes didn't disappear, but it softened, replaced by a fragile sense of relief. Marcus closed the wallet and slipped it back into his jacket, his expression unchanged. There was no pride in his face, no sense of triumph, just a quiet weariness, like someone who had hoped never to use that part of himself again. The men left without another word. The room slowly returned to life, conversations picking up again, though more cautiously now, as if people weren't quite sure what they had just witnessed. Olivia looked at Marcus, her voice barely above a whisper as she tried to understand what had just happened, who he really was, and why he had chosen to help her. Marcus didn't give her a long explanation. He simply told her that sometimes doing the right thing doesn't depend on who you are. It depends on who you choose to be in that moment. He gathered the takeout he had come for, his mind already drifting back to Sophie, to the quiet apartment waiting for him, to the life he had built after leaving everything else behind. As he stood to leave, Olivia reached out, stopping him just long enough to say thank you, not just for what he had done, but for reminding her that not everyone looks away. He nodded, offering a small, tired smile, and walked out into the cold night. Life didn't change instantly after that. Marcus still worked long hours. Sophie still got sick sometimes. Bills still piled up. But something inside him felt lighter, as if he had reclaimed a piece of himself he thought was gone forever. And somewhere, Olivia carried that moment with her too. A reminder that even on the wrong day, at the wrong table, the right person can still show up. Before this story ends, take a moment and tell me in the comments. If you were in Marcus's place, would you have stepped in or stayed silent? And if this story touched your heart even a little, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Only if you truly felt the weight of this moment and the quiet power of choosing courage when it matters most,